The restaurant buzzed with the usual hum of conversation, the clinking of silverware, and the occasional burst of laughter. It was a busy Friday night, and the atmosphere was alive with energy. Among the crowd sat Thomas Reynolds, a middle-aged businessman with a strong presence, enjoying a meal with his colleagues after a long week. The service had been impeccable, the food exquisite, but when the bill arrived, something shifted. As Thomas glanced at the check, his expression darkened. Without hesitation, he reached for his wallet, pulled out the exact amount for the meal, and left not a single cent more. His actions did not go unnoticed, especially not by James Carter, the young black waiter who had diligently served their table all evening. James had seen all kinds of customers, but something about this particular moment unsettled him. A fellow server noticed the exchange and approached James cautiously. "Hey, everything okay?" she asked. James forced a smile. "Yeah, just another night, I guess." But deep down, he knew it wasn't just another night. He had been polite, attentive, and professional, yet he had been stiffed, without reason. And something in Thomas's demeanor made it clear, this wasn't about service. It was about something else. Something deeper. Something uglier. Unbeknownst to Thomas, the universe had a way of balancing the scales. Karma was already in motion, and what came next would leave everyone, especially Thomas, stunned. The night ended, and James left the restaurant with a familiar but heavy feeling in his chest. He had encountered customers like Thomas before, but that didn't make it any easier. The unspoken prejudice, the silent dismissal, it chipped away at him, no matter how much he tried to shake it off. The following morning, James's coworker, Lisa, shared the incident on social media. "A friend of mine was refused a tip last night by a customer who had no complaints, just a clear bias. This kind of thing happens too often. It needs to stop." The post quickly gained traction. People flooded the comments with support for James, sharing their own experiences with discrimination in the service industry. Local activists caught wind of the story, and soon, what had been a quiet moment of injustice was turning into a conversation much larger than one table, one bill, or one man. Meanwhile, Thomas remained oblivious to the growing storm. He went about his weekend as usual, until he received an unexpected phone call. "Mr. Reynolds? This is Sandra Lewis from Channel 5 News. We'd like to ask about an incident involving a waiter at Blue Ridge Steakhouse. Would you be available for a comment?" Thomas froze. His mind raced. How had this become news? What was happening? As he hung up, his phone vibrated again. This time, an email from his company's HR department. Subject: urgent discussion required. As news of the incident spread, people began to dig into Thomas's past. Former colleagues, old friends, even strangers came forward with accounts of his subtle but consistent biases. It wasn't just one isolated incident. It was a pattern. The backlash was swift. Customers boycotted businesses known for tolerating discrimination. The restaurant itself released a statement. "We support our staff and do not condone racial bias in any form. All customers should treat our team with dignity and respect." James, meanwhile, was overwhelmed by the unexpected support. People began tipping extra to compensate for what he had been denied. A GoFundMe page was created in his name, reaching thousands of dollars in mere days. But the most shocking revelation came when someone uncovered Thomas's professional background. As a regional manager for a company that prided itself on diversity and inclusion, his actions directly contradicted the values he was meant to uphold. His employer could no longer ignore the situation. The consequences were coming fast. The company issued a statement announcing Thomas's suspension pending an internal review. Social media erupted. Some defended him, arguing that tipping is optional. Others pointed out the deeper issue, how racial biases seep into everyday actions, often unnoticed by those who benefit from them. Thomas finally broke his silence in an attempt at damage control. "I had a long week. It wasn't personal," he claimed in an interview. "This whole thing has been blown out of proportion." But the evidence of his past behavior suggested otherwise. His company wasn't convinced. Days later, they made a decision. Thomas Reynolds was officially terminated. James, on the other hand, found himself at the center of an important conversation. "This isn't just about me," he told reporters. "It's about how common this is. It's about dignity and fairness." The moment had transformed from a single act of discrimination into a reckoning. Weeks later, James sat down for an interview. I never expected any of this, he admitted. But I hope it makes people think twice. I hope it changes something. Thomas, now unemployed, largely disappeared from public view. Some said he moved to another city. Others speculated he was quietly rebuilding his career under a different name. But the stain on his reputation remained. Meanwhile, restaurants and service workers across the country used the incident to push for better protections against discrimination. Discussions about implicit bias training for customers and staff gained momentum. The story had ignited something bigger than itself. For James, life continued. He kept working, kept serving, but with a renewed sense of purpose. And while one man had refused to see his worth, the world had made it clear James was valued, respected, seen. And that, in the end, was the real tip he received.